Hello, my fellow oil painters. My name is Gabby, and I am a wet oil painter. And today I want to talk about oil paint. So, on this tray, I have 60 tubes of oil paint, and they all have one thing in common. They are all different brands that I have tried of oil paint. My plan is to write a book, which I have been working on, and part of that is a section where I talk about all these different brands of oil paint specifically. So I'm going to talk about them as a collection, and I have some hints and some information that I'll go through each one as I go through them. So let's get started. I'm going to start on this end over here, and then I'll work my way over. This first tube, this is Holbein, and they make artist grade paints, and they make really nice paints. They're decently solid, they don't separate much, they're fairly good. The second one is called Meeden, and Meeden is a very cheap paint. I have them categorized on a spreadsheet, and one of the categories is how much they are per ounce, and most of these in the front here run at about $1 an ounce, not the Holbein. The second paint, or excuse me, the third paint that I have here is Liquitex. They don't make it anymore. The third one is Workstation Artist Oil, and that actually came with like a book on how to oil paint. The next one, Art Creation, I think is kind of a Walmart special. Comes like in a set with a bunch of different art supplies, but it's actually not bad if you come across some of it. Then we have the Artisan Winsor Newton Water Mixable. And next to that, I have Duo Aqua. They are both water mixable paints. I don't do any water mixing. You can use those with your normal paint without any problems. But if you want to do water mixable, you can't add in any of these other ones. It has to be a water mixable if you're going to use water. Next is the Reeves. Reeves comes in a set, and it's actually really decent oil paint. So that is a set that I do recommend people buy. Then we have the Artist's Loft. This stuff is very available, at least in the United States, and it's very cheap, it's very liquidy, and it's very not good paint. Next to it we have the Daler Rowney Simply, and this again is very available. A lot of Walmarts carry this, and they were the first paint I ever used, and they are not great paint at all. If you can avoid buying either one of those, I would recommend that. And while we're talking about paint, I would recommend you avoid this Marie's oil paint, and it comes in big tubes and small tubes. This stuff is really garbage. It separates out a lot, and it's also really gritty, and I personally don't care for gritty paint. Some people like it, and to each his own. The next one is the US Art Supply, and this paint is really junky too. So from here for a ways, these are all sets that I have that I've purchased to try specifically. And most of these you can buy still on Amazon for about $1 an ounce, and they usually come in a set of 12, 24, 36 colors. They tend to be very affordable. They don't tend to be very high quality, but it is okay to have a set of these. They work really well for having a big variety of colors, and they're good, you know, once you kind of have the background on for laying colors on top, because they are more of a liquidy paint. So I have Mozart, Castle. Oh, some of these aren't labeled, sorry. This one is Xena, Pinelli, Ohuhu, Yarka, which is not part of that. You can't buy the Yarka anymore. Art Start, Arteza, Sargent Art, Cool, no, this one is Jiangsu, My Artscape, Art Smith, Cool Bank. So these are all, with the exception of this one. are all cheaper paints that you can get at about $1 an ounce. Actually, this Art Start really isn't one that you can buy anymore, I don't think either. That one I think came with a book as well. So these are all brands, again, that you can get for fairly cheap. And then we get to the Lukas. Lukas is not cheap paint. You can buy like sets of these if you want to try them. They're decent paint. They're nothing too special in my opinion. The last one that we have in this row is called 12 Shades of Gray, and they come in a box with 12 shades of gray, and they're kind of an interesting set. I just really wanted to try them, so that's why I have them. And they're normal, they're not liquidy. When I think about what makes a good oil paint, first you have to think about, you know, what kind of oil painter you are. And I don't like paints personally that separate out a lot. I don't like gritty paints, but that is a preference thing. And I don't like paints that are super, super expensive. And I don't like paints that have really, really low pigment loads, which means if you were to add some, say, paint thinner to it, and it looks like it's just vanishing before your eyes, it's because it has a really low pigment load. So let's move up here. I have Utrecht Professional Oil Paint, and it's decent. It's a little bit softer than I care for. This one is Acolosa, and I'm not sure what country this is from. It says that it's made by Holbein though, so it must be one of the Holbein brands, and I'm not sure if you can even get it anymore. It's a pretty old tube of paint. I'm going to take out this Glow Cubed, and I'm going to talk about that in a little while. We can put these back here. The next one I have kind of belongs down in here. It's called Magic Fly, and I've had a couple sets of these. They come with a lot of colors. Some of them are a little bit soupy and separate fairly often, but they're decent paints. Grumbacher Artist Oil, and their Grumbacher paints are wonderful. My favorite paint, officially, would be Winton paints. Now, some people say you need to use artist grade paints, and I just really don't agree with that. I think if you're a good artist, you can paint with anything, and that's no offense to any artist, because some people that are professional just prefer to use better paints, better pigment loads, which is fine. I have the Van Gogh and the Rembrandt, which is, you know, on either side of this 1980. They're both made by the same company. They're both decent paints, fairly solid. They're not liquidy. In between is the Gamblin 1980. That's one of the brands of Gamblin, and it's like the student level. And it's decent, but you definitely can tell a little bit of a color load and pigment load between those. Next I have the Williamsburg, a little bit more expensive paint, but it's decent, and it depends on what series. Some paints that are more professional level, they will have different series, and depending on their series will tell you like how much they cost, and these go anywhere from like about $10 to probably $100 or more for a tube. So it's good paint, but in my opinion, you shouldn't have to spend that much on oil paint. The next one that I have here is the Old Holland, and I actually haven't used this. I just got this today, so I'm excited to try it. It is definitely a good stiff paint. I opened it, it doesn't separate. It's nice color. These Old Holland, they go anywhere from about $10 a tube to about $400 a tube. So I wanted to try it, but I certainly was not going to try one of the more expensive ones. I don't need it. This is the Gamblin Artists, and very good paint. This Art Studio is another cheap one, but it is a lot better quality, and I'm not sure if you can get it anymore or not, but it is decent for a cheap tube of paint. And you can kind of tell, you know, I wonder if some of these aren't made by the same company, because you can just tell by the tubes, and the paint quality tends to be the same throughout. So Glow Cubed. I have done some glow-in-the-dark oil painting, Now, the thing with glow-in-the-dark oil painting is you really can't mix it with your oil paint. You have to basically put it on top after your paint has dried. Now, I prefer to make my own glow-in-the-dark sort of oil paint, and I do that with this Gamblin solvent-free gel, and then I mix it with a pigment powder. And the same with the Glow Cubed. You basically have to put that on and put it over a light color after that paint has dried. This Glow Cubed is very expensive. It came in a set of 10, and it was about $100 for the set. And they did the best they can. They really did. So I definitely don't want to knock them. You can see, though, that it's like just puddles inside of them. I kind of whip them before I use them just to kind of get the paint sort of mixed up. The thing about it is it's very, very gritty, to the point that when you start putting it on the canvas, it will start to crumble off of it. But that's the nature of glow-in-the-dark pigment. They have to be bigger pigment pieces or they don't glow. We'll move up. Next is the M Gram. And I have the M Gram turquoise color, and it's really a beautiful, beautiful color if you're looking for a good transparent turquoise. The next two are Shiva. Now this Shiva is no longer made. Richardson bought the Shiva company, I believe, in the early 90s. And so now they make the Shiva series. Not a big fan of Shiva. It's a little bit liquidy, it's a little bit gritty, but some artists really like it. Next is Permanent Pigments. I have a lot of these and they're really nice. This is a discontinued paint though. Next is the Alexander. This is made by Bill Alexander. He taught Bob Ross everything that he knew, and he, in my opinion, is a better painter. You can look him up online. He is a lot of fun to watch, Bill Alexander, and his paints are very, very good quality. Next to that is the Bellini. They don't make Bellini paint anymore, which is a tragedy because this stuff is like silk. It's almost like butter. It is super, super smooth. So I really like that. Up onto this next row, we have the Grumbacher Academy. And so this is Grumbacher. You can definitely tell a little bit of a difference in quality, but these Academy ones are still good paints. When it comes to like texture, they're very similar to the artist grade. This is PBO, and I do believe they still make this. This is an older tube. A decent paint. I can't really say anything good or bad about it. The Utrecht Studio. So when it comes to artist line versus student line, the student line definitely is a lower quality and has a lower pigment load than the Utrecht Professional. It's still a good paint, just not as good. You can definitely tell a difference between those two. And then we have the Winsor Newton. So this is their professional artist line, and it's a really, really nice line. They do tend to be more expensive depending on what color is going to change the price. I don't know that they come in big tubes, but they make really, really good paint. I don't necessarily think you need to buy that level, and especially if you're getting started, you do not need to spend, any more than, say, I would say $5 an ounce. You shouldn't be paying any more than that for oil paint. This little guy here is called Maestro Pan, and I ordered it online. I don't know even where it's from. Oh, I apologize. I do know where it's from. This is made in Bulgaria, so this is a Bulgarian paint, and it's decent. I ordered because I wanted like a kind of turquoise teal color, and so it's a really pretty color. Good texture, not soft, not too hard. It's just a really nice paint. Blick. Blick, if you are blessed to have a Blick store near you, definitely go to it. It is a lot of fun. Blick also has an online site, and they have a ton of stuff. So this is the Blick student level and then the Blick artist level. And this too, you can tell a difference. This doesn't have the pigment load But I think when it comes to texture, they are pretty much the same. Let's move over. I'm gonna skip over to this side and then I'll work my way over. So Daler Rowney makes 4 or 5 different lines. I have 2 of their lines. This is the Georgian. What I've noticed with this line is the pigment load is not great at all. And their paints do tend to get kind of gummy after a while. It's the best way I can describe it. And it becomes to the point where it's like you can't really get it out of the tube, and then when you do, it tries to just stick together. So it's not great stuff. I don't recommend it. Permalba is made by Weber, and Weber also makes the Bob Ross paints. So the one complaint that I have about any Weber product is that they put them in plastic tubes. So if you have paint that you buy and it's in a plastic tube, don't let it set around for too long. This paint, I'm not sure. This tube of paint is probably fairly old though, and it is gummy as well, and that's what happens with these plastic tubes. This next one I only have in a big tube, so that's all I'm showing you. It's Sennelier, and it says it's a Rive Gauche. It is an oil paint. And Sennelier makes a few different lines. This is the only one that I have so far. What can I say about this paint? This paint it's kind of oily. The thing is this, as a gouache, this paint actually dries faster. But it's fairly expensive, and I think some of their better lines are actually way more expensive. Okay, so let's move on to the Soho. I picked this one because I wanted like a more transparent turquoise, kind of like the one that I have that's made from M. Graham, and it didn't turn out to be very transparent. But it is a good, decent, solid paint. They only come in these big tubes. Very nice paint, and I definitely would buy more of it. For the price, it's actually very decent paint because it was very affordable. This little guy here, Dana, maybe we'll call her this little girl, Dana here. They don't make this anymore, which is great because this stuff is horrid. If you ever come upon a tube of it, yes, you can use it. If they still made this stuff brand new, I would say don't buy it. It is so soupy and yet sandy. It could compete with the quality of the Glow Cubed, honestly, and it doesn't glow in the dark. It's just like a swamp inside of that tube. It's very gross stuff. I think this tube of paint is probably 40 years old. So that shouldn't make it oily though. So I'm guessing the quality of that was horrible when it first came out. And then these last two, I like these two in particular, and so that's why I wanted to talk about them last. This one is called Dynamic Crocodile because somebody decided to have some fun with naming it. You can only find these, or I can only find them, on eBay, and they usually come in like a set. I got 6 of them for about $40, and this tube has already been half emptied. So they're big tubes of paint. They're soupy, but not soupy in a way that they separate. They do separate a little bit, but they're just really, really soft. Soupy is the best word I can use. It's almost to the point that it has an acrylic sort of soupiness. But it's great for doing the background when you're doing wet and wet. This stuff I can put on my canvas with basically no paint thinner, and it's almost to the degree of being like a liquid white. And I don't do liquid white. I don't buy any of that stuff because I go through too much paint. And then this last one I have here is Master's Touch. It's not quite as soupy as this stuff, but it is a very soft paint. And it's very affordable. They sell it at a place called Hobby Lobby if it's available to you. I think you might be able to get it online as well. And $14.99, they usually have it on sale. So you can get this big tube for usually like $10 or $12. So they're nice. They have a fluorescent pink, and it is really a pretty color. I like it. I wouldn't recommend somebody run with every one of their paints being this brand because they're a bit soft, but they are decent. So that is my spread of different brands of oil paint that I have used. Again, my favorite is the Winton. My least favorite is this Artist Loft and the Daler Rowney. If you have any questions or comments about any of these, I would love to hear about them. If you have a paint that I have not tried, I would definitely love to hear about it, especially if you're in a foreign country. So until next time, I'm Gabby. Happy painting!